In the summer of 1947, at the dawn of the Cold War, the U.S. Army Air Force sent out a shocker of a press release, announcing they'd recovered a flying disc from a ranch near Roswell, New Mexico. More than 70 years later, the incident remains a defining aspect of the area's identity. The town boasts a UFO museum, a research center, a flying saucer-inspired McDonald's, alien-themed streetlights, even an extraterrestrial family standard, and a broken-down UFO on the side of State Route 285 looking for a jump start. But behind all of the UFO mania lies an uneasy truth. The events that transpired that summer are anything but clear-cut, and with admitted cover-ups and conflicting explanations, it's led a lot of people to wonder, what actually happened in Roswell, New Mexico? You're listening to Casual History. Hello. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Casual History. How's it going, Jake?
It's going really good. Especially now that I've heard your subject, which I am extremely interested and ready to go. I'm ready to get really weird with this episode.
Yeah, I am too. I had a conversation with a friend yesterday. We were kind of all talking about UFOs ahead of the June 2nd or 1st release date, in quotes, of some more information around the UFOs and the United States Air Force and understanding what was going on out there. And so we had a deep conversation about it all. Like the ones that, you go down the rabbit hole and it just keeps going and going, and then you kind of end up on the phrase of what you actually started off the conversation with.
Of course.
You kind of started there. But it brought up this subject. And I had another, funny enough, I know this is going to sound funny, but I had another subject ready. And then I had that conversation, and in lieu of the things that are happening and the videos that are coming out, this is history, and I think it's a pretty apt moment to talk about one of the defining moments of the history of UFOs and kind of how it became a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking like people have adopted it and like turned it into a thing, like regardless of what happened technically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely affected the area. It's created a tourist spot for people in Roswell. Like, I mean, it's become its own little thing.
Yeah, it was a really interesting, I mean, you've seen the videos, you've seen the documentaries, you've seen the aliens guy with the hair and the memes. Yeah. It's everywhere. And it's always a question, again, for me, have you ever had that thought? Have you had that question lingering in your head about aliens, other life? Is that even something that's ran through your head before?
100% it has. I've kind of, in my own conclusion, again, in my zero wisdom too, I'm just making up my own little conclusions, is I don't know, like I haven't really given much thought to the ones that have been released, like from the Pentagon, which crazy enough, like, I don't know why I haven't really sat down and been like, I need to watch all these and like really assess. Yeah. But I believe there is life. I just don't know if it's like us life, like our intelligence level, our class of life. I've always believed that 100% there are microorganisms, living things out in the universe. It is too vast not to be like just statistically, just thinking, mathematically about it all. But I don't know, this idea that there's like creatures, and not even creatures, but like, beings more like us. Yeah. Aliens. That's the term that fascinates me more, if that's real or not.
This is probably the best place to start, is to kind of get a gauge of where we are and our bias, and then kind of talk about the story of Roswell.
Well, also, I was just going to say, I've been planning a trip for like months. We're going to do like a little road trip to Las Vegas and back here like in the next month. And I literally set that as an itinerary thing of like, if we're driving through New Mexico. You going? Yeah, we're driving through. I was like, if there is a alien themed gas station, or like we get close, I want to go. Yeah. Just for tourist reasons. Just to go and be a part of that culture just for like a second. Like that is definitely one of the things that we want to do.
Yeah, you have to. That's got to be fun.
Yeah. So that was definitely one of my like, okay, well, if we get anywhere close, we need to do something.
I mean,
Or
realistically,
stop
what
or
are you
buy
gonna?
some alien something.
Yeah, that's really what I'm thinking about. Is like, what do you actually do there?
You buy a Roswell T-shirt with an alien on it, or like
You say
I
you
just
were
think
there.
how cool that would be to have. I don't know,
Yeah,
something.
no.
Something for a keepsake.
You should definitely go if you're driving through New Mexico. Mexico, you might as well. If you're hitting
Yeah.
through Roswell or in the area, you should definitely do it. I've never been, but I've been to Vegas, but of course not to Roswell.
Funny enough, we were looking it up, and I think like it's really funny to say this out loud. But like Area 51 is like closed for the COVID stuff.
Yeah.
Because we were looking that up. Yeah, right. Like 'cause it's already like completely blocked off. You're not supposed to go. You get in huge trouble. But like even just the out front area that is kind of touristy now that you can just drive up to Area 51 is technically closed.
Yeah.
But we were actually looking into that, like just being in that area.
So you would never turn into one of those guys that sits in the diner out front of Area 51 and you wait for the new lowly traveler to go stop through and get their breakfast, and you hear them talking about, oh man, I wonder what's out there, and you don't want to be the guy that turns around with an eye patch and go, I can show you.
Oh my gosh, dude, that's the dream. Is we drive through and we stop, like there's no other person out there, but there's just one lonely guy drinking a black coffee there by himself in the corner booth.
Yeah.
And we just slowly walk up to him, and he's like, I've lived here my entire life. You want to know what really goes on here?
It's so public.
And we go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's so public, though. That whole thing has already moved, in my opinion. The moment it happened, they probably moved operations like the following year.
I thought there was already like evidence supporting that they moved main operations elsewhere because of how much popularity
they
it got.
did. I
so
can't
it's
remember.
for sure just a regular base now, but it's just high security because people are flocking to the area.
I'm not to get I mean, we're all on base here, but not to get too off the track. But have you seen the Bob Lazar Netflix documentary?
No, I have not.
Well, he mentions another base like Area 51. And he was one of the first people to ever mention it. So it kind of gives him credibility that he worked there. And again, his whole story about aliens is fascinating. And the way he describes it is really interesting. And he's one of the most believed people because he's got all the credentials to back it up. So if you're looking for something to watch out there, folks, about aliens. And again, we're a history podcast. And so I didn't know how this is history, right?
Listen, there was an event that happened in history that no one can explain.
Yeah.
That is a historical event. What happened in Roswell is an historical event. We are a history podcast. We have to cover it.
Okay.
It's that important.
It felt funny to do the research on because it is a history moment, but it still feels like, I don't know, a little bit...
Conspiracy,
little pseudo weirdness. I don't know. But
no, man.
My ground basis here is I believe there are aliens out there. Do I believe that they're here? I'm starting to with some of the videos they're releasing.
Okay.
But you know me, we've talked about this where I'm on the
You're
scale.
high on the mermaid scale.
I'm
We know you.
Scale, so.
Listen, I'll be the yin to your yang a little bit.
Okay.
I don't know if those are technically like real alien stuff that they've been releasing. I don't know. I don't know if I believe that yet. This podcast might be the one to convince me.
Well, I don't think this will convince anyone. I think what this will do is I'm going to try to provide again, sometimes it's blurry in my mind when I think of what happened in Roswell. And so I kind of want to give a overview of what is known, some of the theories, some of the information that's come out afterwards, and try to paint a clearer picture from my perspective and what I've done just reading-wise and research-wise.
All right, let's do it.
So it was sometime between mid-June and early July in 1947 when rancher, the craft supposedly crashed on a ranch, right?
Okay.
The rancher was named W.W. Brazel, but he was known as Mac, M-A-C. He found the wreckage on his property in Lincoln County, New Mexico, approximately 75 miles north of Roswell. Okay. And so I want to say up to this point, there had been sightings of craft. So prior to this event, there was kind of a craze that was happening in the culture with spacecraft in general. And again, there were sightings supposedly before this that were coming in hot from around that same time period. So like a month prior, on June 24th, there was a pilot named Kenneth Arnold who claimed to have seen 9 unidentified objects flying like a saucer would across water, is a direct quote, near Mount Rainier, Washington, where we used to live.
Yes.
And Arnold estimated that the objects were flying around 1,200 miles per hour. And Arnold was reported as saying in East Oregon that at the time there were no known craft that could reach those speeds. Okay?
Right.
And so the Air Force also said it had no new experimental planes or guided missiles that would fit such a description. And according to a U.S. Department of Defense report, that story became front-page news, and the term flying saucer was born from that little event that happened. So this was something that was kind of starting to, I guess, percolate beforehand. When he was describing them as crescent shape, and that's when the term was coined. And so that was really interesting to me because, again, I didn't know when I was looking this up, like, did this come out of nowhere? Was this like the first hit of, I knew there were comic books and stuff before this about, people coming down, and what's the movie that you love? What's the movie that I'm thinking of? Back to the Future. Back to the Future.
Interstellar. Oh, Back to the Future.
And there was comics that they mentioned that were back in the 50s, right? And it was about a space being. And anyway, that's a funny little connection there. But I didn't know how into the culture it was at this point, or could this have been, again, seeing what they wanted to see because it was a craze or something that was going on, right?
Right.
So I tried to approach
a
it
small
spectacle.
desert town, a hotspot.
Exactly. And I'm trying to approach this skeptically. And that's kind of where my thought went. But after the 1947 event in July, right, where Mac reports seeing wreckage on his property, the next day the RAAF released a statement writing that, and this is in quotes, "The many rumors regarding the flying disc became a reality yesterday when the intelligence office of the 509th Bomb Group of the 8th Air Force, Roswell Army Airfield, was fortunate enough to gain possession of a disc through the cooperation of one of the local ranchers in the sheriff's office at Chaves County." Direct quote.
Now this was put where?
The RAAF.
They posted it though? Like it was like a...
Yeah, this was a quote. This was a statement that was released.
Oh, wow, you're joking.
Okay.
I didn't know there was any real press about it.
Yeah. So according to the statement, and we're going to get into this figure, Jesse Marcel, but according to the statement, Major Jesse Marcel, who is an intelligence officer, oversaw the RAAF's investigation of the crash site and recovered material. And so the following day, the Roswell Daily Record ran a story about the crash and the RAAF's astonishing claim. But as soon as that came out, the U.S. Army officials quickly reversed themselves on the the term flying saucer claim, stating that the debris that was found was actually from a weather balloon. And releasing photographs, releasing photographs of Major Marcel posing with pieces of the supposed weather balloon debris as proof. Do you know the photo I'm talking about? It's a pretty...
I absolutely do. It's ingrained in my mind. I've watched
black and white, and he's kind of in his kneeling down.
Yeah, he's kneeling down on his front porch with almost like metallic. Yeah. Like an outside, almost like a tarp.
Looks kind of like aluminum pieces. Foil. But we should post that when we post this episode. Okay. Just so someone, again, if someone has never seen it, it's pretty cool to see. Because whether this was a disinformation campaign that immediately got enacted, and they're like, throw some tinfoil on there, tell them it was a weather balloon, cover up this statement, this should have never went out. Right? Yeah. That's what it would seem to be. Okay? Okay. And so after that came out, I do want to say another thing. I want to jump ahead just real quick to 1978 when there's a nuclear physicist, author, and UFO researcher, Stanton Friedman, interviewed Marcel. So the figure that we're talking about, the guy who is in control of recovering the debris, who said that the discovery made 31 years earlier was not from this world. This is a direct quote, again, and that the government had ordered him to keep quiet. Friedman revisited the incident and sought out other witnesses, and his work inspired Charles Berlitz and William Moore to write the Roswell incident, which was a book that was published in 1980. And their conclusion was really simple. And what it was, they didn't know, but they did know that there had been a huge cover-up.
Okay.
So, jumping back, okay, just again, this was touching on the Jesse figure, who was the guy who was responsible for recovering the materials. It took really decades after. So, for decades, many UFO researchers were skeptical of the government's changed account. And in 1994, the U.S. Air Force released a report, finally, in which they conceded that the weather balloon story had been bogus. And according to the 1994 explanation, the wreckage actually came from another spy device that was created for an until then classified project called Project Mogul.
So they're trying to say, okay, well, we released that.
We'll give it to you.
To like disinformation for something more secretive, right? Like, and that's more believable.
Yeah, and so they're like, oh, no, you're right. It didn't make sense. We just made it up. What was really happening was for this device. And this device was, again, another type of weather balloon that connected a string of high-altitude balloons equipped with microphones, supposedly. And it was designed to float over the USSR to detect sound waves at a stealthy distance. And these balloons would monitor the Soviet government's attempts at testing their own atomic bombs. Because
this sounds realistic.
It does sound realistic, right? And because of Project Mogul was a covert operation, the new report claimed a false explanation of the crash was necessary to prevent giving away details of their spy work.
Right.
That sounds believable, right? But it took them 31 years.
Like that's what happened.
But it took them 31 years to come up with this lie.
Well, yeah. I mean, to come up with this lie.
That's what I did there.
You don't know if it's a lie. That sounds the most plausible thing I've heard so far.
Listen, when you're trying to appease the masses, you're going to...
That's a foolproof story.
Listen, that does sound credible. But why did it take 31 years?
Because it wasn't a matter of national interest until like it got to a point where that doesn't matter. They can say that now because that instrument is now like
I don't know
old.
But there's other elements, Jacob, that doesn't line up with this theory either, and we're gonna talk about some claims.
Okay.
So there's other elements of the Roswell story, namely one of the big reasons or big ones being that some eyewitnesses claimed that there were bodies taken from the site.
Right. Yes. I see. I've seen a bunch of documentaries on this, and them saying they recovered bodies and people supposedly seeing bodies.
It's well documented that there's people claiming this who was on site.
Right.
Okay. And so the explanation of a fallen parachute, and you know what they came up with?
What?
6 years after, right? They said, oh, no, it was Project Mogul, right? And then, there's more elements that came out of, well, there's people who were direct claiming that there's bodies. And then they come out in 1997 and go, oh, no. They were test dummies that we had on Project Mogul that was, that fell with the crash of the balloon Mogul. It was test dummies, Jake. We had it up there just, Project Test Dummies.
Right. So just keep adding on to your story.
Come on, Jake. Come on.
Come on. Are you sheep? You going to believe this? Listeners, can you believe this?
I couldn't.
What the government's trying to do? Trying to get away with this?
Listen, but does that not sound fit? Like if someone's going to lie, you don't just come out 6 years later and go, oh no, we heard about the new claims that there was eyewitnesses that said there were bodies. No, that was actually just test dummies. What? Does that not?
You think that's suspicious,
Jacob? Anybody who takes 6 years to come out with another lie that kind of it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense.
But you've already made it up that it's a lie. See, I see you talking about it like
okay. Let's say it isn't a lie. Let's just say it isn't a lie, and they're telling the truth. What's with the time frame on that?
Well, what do they owe the public an explanation for? Like if it's a secret project, you're the government. Like you don't owe them.
You think
all the details of every single thing that happened, huh?
Oh, so you're one of those.
And so, no, I'm just saying, like, truthfully though, like, okay, so if that happens, right, and you're like, there's no obligation to the public to tell, and so they come out and they're like, oh yeah, like, that was definitely us. It was a secret project. Sorry it blew up like it did. It led people to conclusions. you're going to have to pull for that rest of that information. They're not going to be like spill their guts about every single detail that was in that balloon, the people that they were using, like anything like that, all the little details. So it makes sense that the more people pressed on those issues, that they were like, here, this is what happened.
Yeah.
They're not just willingly like,
Yeah, and that's
crash test dummies. That wouldn't be the first thing you say unless people brought up stories about, hey, I saw bodies.
Yeah. Well, listen, you can go down that route and say that's all peachy keen, or
you can be a sheep all you want.
No, I want to bring up some other evidence, because here's the thing. Majority of these other claims, right, the files that remain open in the eyes of many, many people, they put great value on the testimonies of the people who were actually there, and many of them are respected military personnel. And so a lot of these people that are claiming these things were people that were involved. And so every member of Blanchard's senior staff, with a single exception, suggested that the craft was of alien origin. So that's a big bomb there. Take that for what you will.
Yeah.
One of them being Kevin D. Randall, a retired lieutenant colonel of the U.S. Army Reserve who served in Vietnam and Iraq, told all about space. Major Edwin Easley, another one who claimed this as well, the base provost marshal, told me, this in quotes, when asked if we were following the right path, meaning extraterrestrial, he responded with that it wasn't the wrong path. So these people who were involved, and they're being asked by people, these are from they're saying things like that. Why would he say that, right? Like, why would one of these people who is on the ground, and if they're asked, am I following that path? Is this extraterrestrial? And he goes, that isn't the wrong path.
Yeah, why would he lead that on?
Right.
That story.
Right.
Why would he insinuate that if he wants it squashed and he wants all the hype to go away?
I don't know that this guy,
right?
these are people
and people
underneath.
not to talk about this anymore.
Yeah. These are the people
Why would he do
underneath
that?
the power group, too. These are kind of people that weren't all the way up, but they're like people in that were, again, the Kevin D. Randall, who was a retired lieutenant, and Major Edwin Easley, who was a provost marshal in that group. So something to take with you as we go through this journey.
Okay.
So I'm going to jump to another thing. So Donald Schmidt, he's a UFO researcher. That's a funny term, but hey, people are out there. They're doing it. Who spent nearly 3 decades investigating Roswell incident. And is the co-founder of the International UFO Museum and Research Center in Roswell. Says that that the explanation makes little sense. And of course, he's going to say that this is what he believes, right? But the flying saucer story, he contends, was so ostentatious that it was bound to draw attention to the area. And so with its sensitive military operations at the time, doing so would seem highly counter to the interests of the War Department. So he's saying, saying, why would they say what they said, right? They're going to immediately want to try to shut that down if a mistake was made, because it would bring just the sensationalism to the area of people wanting to know what's going on when they had Area 51 nearby, right?
Right, exactly. That's one of the most secret bases in the world up until recently, right? Like, I say up until recently, people knew about it, but they've now like acknowledged that it exists. But it was like the secret facility for testing like new aircraft.
Wait, I'm not mistaken. Am I?
Out in the desert.
Area 51 is nearby Roswell. Here, because what I have here is I'm sorry if I'm.
It's in New Mexico.
Okay, so
I think it's in Roswell.
Okay, well it says 2 hours west. The reason why he says this, and this quote goes on, he says 2 hours west of Roswell, the first atomic bomb was detonated, and you had ongoing atomic research at Los Alamos. You had all this testing of captured German V-2 rockets at White Sands, and at Roswell you had the first atomic bomb squadron headquartered. He says the thought that they would have intentionally set up any type of publicity as a distraction, if anything, they needed less attention. So
exactly. That is true. That is counterproductive.
It would seem counterproductive to what they were trying to do. So it seems like it was not obvious. It was a mistake, one way or another, or something happened, and again they tried to shut it down because of all of this that was going on. They didn't want more attention in the area than they needed.
Huh. Interesting, Jeffrey. Interesting.
Yeah. And so I'm gonna keep going down this thought hole, and we can just keep talking about it. But another questionable theory that got brought up that I read was advanced by the book Area 51: An Uncensored History of America's Top Secret Military Base. If people are interested in looking that up. But it states that the crashed flying vehicle was neither extraterrestrial nor the work of U.S. spies. Rather, it was an unconventional plan to induce widespread American panic implemented by the Soviet strongman Stalin.
Okay. See, so there's lots of like little layers to this, isn't there?
There is, and again, I didn't realize all the possible theories that came out.
Me neither.
But watch it be just something minuscule. You know, I would see that's where I get in and out of this theory, because the backside of my mind goes, man, people make the biggest things out of the smallest
100%
things. So
especially things that they don't know.
Yeah.
They're not in the military. Their tech was like 20 years ahead of anything people knew about. Then that's what they were testing out there in that field. If something super classified crashed or some civilian found that, it would look alien. It would look not from this world, and you wouldn't want to broadcast that it's yours.
Yeah. So we're on a roller coaster of emotions right now. We kind of went
right.
We went started skeptical, kind of went into it a little bit, kind of dove into the atmosphere, then we're kind of coming back down, going, well, wait a minute.
Right.
Maybe we'll end up back in the middle
trying
somewhere.
To pull it back a little.
But this theory goes, right? This is a really interesting one, because it would go to say that they explained the wreckage, and it was described by, so like I said, the theory that it was by Soviet Union, that supposedly that the bodies that were found were morphed or made to look alien-like, and was crashed on purpose by the Soviet Union in some sort of craft to try to bring attention to the area that was going on again. The area that they didn't want attention, because all this stuff was going on, that this was supposed to induce panic and basically make them scramble and move operations and basically disrupt their progress.
Their plans, right. Because that was the premier place for a while.
Right. And so it's really interesting because, the Jesse Marcel, which I mentioned at the front, the son of the intelligence officer, named in the initial press report, according to Marcel Jr.'s book, the son of the head guy, The Roswell Legacy, his father supposedly brought some of the UFO wreckage home, allowing his son to handle the debated debris before he took it to his base. And a source who worked as an engineer at Area 51 for the defense contractor EG&G told the book's author, Andy Jacobson, that a veteran national security journalist and Pulitzer Prize nominee, that the program had been designed by Nazi concentration camp doctor Joseph Mengele. And according to the source, adolescent children were deformed by the Soviets to resemble aliens and then deployed in an aircraft to fly over New Mexico. And according to the book, Stalin's plan was for the children to climb out and be mistaken for visitors from Mars, and that panic would ensue, and that America's early warning radar system would be overwhelmed with sightings of other UFOs. That's bizarre. Is that not bizarre? I mean, I know we're talking aliens,
that's an extreme strategy, but I mean, weirder things were, man, if we know anything about Germany at that time, like the crazy shit they were developing, that it, like, you saying that kind of sounds insane, but for that time and what they were trying to do, like, it might not be that insane.
It sounded rather, again, we're talking aliens here and craft UFOs, so maybe I can't say anything to that line of thinking, but that almost seemed more unrealistic than it being a UFO. But
really?
I don't know. Again, people have done crazier things.
You had the Nazis developing air cannons.
Well, this is from Stalin.
Crazy weapons using stuff that creativity that people at the time weren't using that we know of.
Yeah, well, this was
they were doing really crazy things.
Right. And this was supposed to be from Joseph Stalin and the Nazi concentration camp doctor. So it wasn't, I don't think it was like an underground version of Nazis in the 50s.
Okay.
But I think it was, that's how I read this anyway. Again, I don't know I don't know enough probably to speak on that, but that's how I took it. And so that's another theory. something to mull on. But there's some more interesting pieces here that I want to get into. We can kind of dive back in, and maybe we'll end up in the center of what really happened. But for now, I thought it would be good to take a break at this point, and then we'll jump back into it.
Yeah. Like this show and want to make your own? Let me tell you about Anchor. First, it's free. Second of all, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Now you can even add any song from Spotify directly into your episodes. The possibilities are endless to what you can create, whether it's music analysis, your own radio show, or something the world's never heard before. You can now even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right, back to the podcast.
Welcome back. Thanks for listening to the ad. That helps support this podcast and keep us running and able to improve. Isn't that right, Jake?
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
But Jeffrey, I really just want to get back. I need to know what happened in the desert in Roswell. Okay, you have to tell me. Aliens? Are they real?
This is the official.
Have they spoke to you?
Yeah, this is the official. This is the official history book right here. I'm speaking it out loud. If anybody knew, though, it's going to be the people who've spent time on this, and I don't think they've spent enough time on it. There's people out there that dedicate their lives to UFOs in general, and Roswell kind of being the epicenter of that. But there's some interesting books and podcasts out there and documentaries if people are actually interested in learning more about what's going on currently with some of the new footage that has been verified by the Pentagon as UFOs. They don't call them UFOs. They call them, what's the phrase? It's like UAPs, I think, or something. Like they changed the term probably for records, because you can do record search and look throughs, sure. And it just makes it probably harder for people to actually find what they're looking for in public records. But that's actually another theory that we can get into that is actually real. They keep shifting the name of what they call these projects when they turn to public records. So they don't call them UFOs or aliens. They'll call them different acronyms to try to, again, throw some dust in the water. Throw some mud in the water. But back to Roswell. So we left off on the theory about maybe it was the Joseph Stalin, right? Maybe it was a plan by the USSR to cause panic, and that was what happened, and a failed attempt, and kind of just led to this weird story that happened. That could be a theory, but there is the thought that, and it could go a long way in explaining the wreckage described by Jesse Marcel Jr., the son of the intelligence officer. According to Marcel Jr., right after he brought home that wreckage, that he saw symbols that almost kind of looked like hieroglyphic type symbols on the wreckage. He said it was metallic, and this is in quotes, "I could see what looked like writing, and at first I thought Egyptian hieroglyphs. But there are no animal outlines or figures. They weren't mathematical figures either. They're more like geometric symbols, squares, circles, triangles, pyramids, and the like." End quote.
Okay.
So it's really interesting there.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about Marcel as well, Marcel is really one of the big figures that this all rides on. He was, again, standalone, then not the standalone guy, but without him there'd be some gaping holes of kind of really what happened. But there's not. There's a lot of other witnesses that have come forward, incredible witnesses who have high military rank, men and women who are prominent in their communities, who believe the craft was alien. And these are some quotes directed from some good articles that are, again, talking to these people and relaying the information. But we've attempted to eliminate the fakers from those who had information to provide. We've been taken in for a time by some of those fakers, but in the long run, after the investigation follows through, that case was removed, and many of the fakers were basically just thrown out. And so they're trying to whittle down all these people going, "Oh no, I saw what happened. No, I saw what happened."
Right.
But essentially the point...
My grandma's an alien.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Well,
What?
I wouldn't put it past you. But the point is that Marcel was backed up by other high-ranking officers and many civilians who were part of the case. Marcel told what he had seen and done, and there was little embellishment in his testimony.
Okay.
So Randall, there's a guy who's kind of leading this article, and one of these articles that I'm pulling this from, when they were doing the investigation. He appeared in the documentary Roswell, the First Witness, and it follows the investigations of former CIA operative Ben Smith into Roswell. And a key part of this series is a journal found in Marcel's possession that was initially thought to have been written by him. So this is where it gets kind of interesting, okay? And again, maybe I kind of took you on a little side boat there with that little monologue. No. So, it turned out this journal, okay, which consisted of quotes, lyrics, and jokes, could be dated to the time of the Roswell incident, but the handwriting didn't match Marcel's handwriting. And so Smith, the guy who kind of did this investigation and found this, pondered why the former Army officer retained the journal at all. And there was speculation over whether it may have been containing some sort of code, and why it was given up. And if it did, however, it hasn't been deciphered by even the best of minds, according to the documentary. So, again, after Marcel's death, they found this, and it was like, why is it kind of stood out amongst the crowd of like, why is this something that he had in his possession? And it was dated to that time.
Maybe he just liked to doodle, man.
Maybe he did.
Maybe dude was a poet. I need to know what was in this book, though. Like, was it like poem? Like, he just said like song
quotes, lyrics, and jokes.
Okay, well, not that suspicious.
Not that suspicious.
Maybe he just in his free time.
But it's dated to the time period.
Why is there gotta be a code
of Roswell? But I don't know. It was a piece that I thought was interesting that I read about, and I'm like, that's really weird.
Yeah.
Basically, Smith also sought to discover what was written in a document held by Brigadier General Roger Ramey of the 8th Air Force Commander. He was an 8th Air Force Commander, During the press conference, it was captured in a photograph taken by Star Telegram reporter, right? If you see this famous photograph, in his hand is a report, right? And it's caught on camera, like with the like you can see markings on it.
Right.
And it basically, people have long wondered, after again trying to do zooms, trying to enhance the image, whether the words they struggle to make out refer to, there's in quotes, victims of the wreck, is what supposedly read on the report. On the
paper as he held it up.
Well, it was just in his hand. No, it was like in his hand. Like he was holding it like in a press conference. So if you see this video, there's a video, I believe, and a photo. And we could post that as well in line with some of the other ones. But he's holding like his papers at his side, right? And the report is facing outward. So it got captured on camera.
Wow.
And so people have tried to like zoom in.
First of all, that's reckless on its own. Why are you carrying the real
he's doing a press
real
conference,
shit around?
You know? Who knows?
Yeah.
But again, it's a source of debate amongst people who go, what's on there? And they can't make it out. Still no one has been able to enhance or make out the words exactly what they say. But if someone did, they'd be able to see quite a lot, I think.
That's right.
So that was really interesting. And then there's another little story here that I have that I wanted to bring up. And again, this focuses on the Marcel, Jesse A. Marcel. So there's one of the last known interviews with him. Basically, this guy goes in and tries to talk to him and get some answers. And so he's the last surviving person who was in Roswell that night and saw and touched the remains. His story essentially is different to the official line, and after 2 hours of chatting to him, the guy who goes in and interviews him, he's essentially very delightful. His family is, really nice. He's extremely intelligent, sensible, straightforward people. And again, this is this guy's who's interviewing him, his perspective. He says, I have absolutely no doubt that the truth of what really landed in Roswell has been and it continues to be concealed from us. Okay? Now, Jesse is a qualified medic, an ear and nose and throat specialist. He was a military doctor for many years. He spent part of his childhood in Roswell because of his father, Major Jesse Marcel, who worked for the Pentagon in a very high-powered role at Walker Air Force Base near Roswell. He was head of security intelligence for atomic tests in the USA and Pacific, and was the officer who back in 1945 had the grim but historic task of briefing the crew of the B-29 superfortress before the missions to drop the nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of,
so
again...
obvious. That's as credible as it gets, right? I mean, you would think.
He clearly was anything but a flaky individual, right? As someone who some attempts were made to smear him subsequently, and crucially, he had considerable insider knowledge of all the latest secret aviation technology from where he worked. That was all under development at the time. So when Jesse Sr. subsequently maintained that what he had helped recover from Roswell was not of this earth, he was one of the very few people actually in position to make that judgment from an informed perspective. Okay?
Okay.
So that's where a lot of this rides. This really rides on that one man.
Okay.
And so...
interesting.
Again, I'm going to go through this, and this is... we can take it for what you will.
What's really interesting, though, is its connection to now, like, again, with the Pentagon releasing these videos and, like, up close, and, like, even with, like... yeah, just like in modern times of this happening.
Yeah.
I find that connection fascinating because, like, if this is one-off story, right, like it was before all these stuff got released, you kind of forget about it and you, like, chalk it up to, like, well, humans can make mistakes.
Yeah.
Like, we've taken small things and turned them into our imaginations and, like, made stories about plenty of stuff. But, like, now that there's more and more stuff coming out and, like, confirming and being official, it just makes this all a little bit murkier.
Yeah.
Even murkier for me, who, like, likes to go, like, write that off as, like, that's just humans being humans.
Yeah.
You know how that is.
I told you we're doing a roller coaster. We just went from, okay, we're kind of into it. Oh wait, no, maybe not. And now we're back into it. And now you're coming to the dark side.
Guys, whoever's listening, we need to know your opinions. I need to know where you stand on all this. Yeah. So if you want to, just, again, I'm not trying to plug in the middle of the podcast, but, like, truly reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, any of our messaging stuff, our Discord.
Yeah.
Love to talk about this more. And if you have some, like, crazy info or some crazy theory, I would love to hear it because I'm always fascinated about aliens and, like,
there's no shame here in what you believe in when it comes to aliens. So let us know. Casual history.
You might be right.
Yeah. And so to continue on this story, right, with the guy interviewing this Jesse. Jesse described it to him in detail. So the crash site was on a sheep station some distance from Roswell itself. Jesse explained that it was first discovered by a rancher, which we already talked about, who noticed that his sheep were refusing to cross part of the grazing land, and that's when he saw the debris. Jesse's father was sent there to investigate, and he told me his dad brought home a foil-like substance that had some form of code written on it. And he told his son, this is in quotes, "This is from a flying saucer. You will never see it again."
Really?
Yeah, that's a direct quote.
Wow. That's ominous as
Jesse
crap.
described it to the interviewer in detail, saying it was very thin, like aluminum foil, with some kind of coating on it, but not anything recognizable in the form of words. Any form of writing that was remotely recognizable as being from this planet. He said you could bend the metal, and it didn't matter how much you bent it or how many times, it would instantly revert back to its original shape.
Right.
And so...
Jeffrey, sorry, not to go off on a tangent. I just literally watched a full video on there is metal right now. This leads me into an even crazier theory that I kind of want to throw at you a little bit. So I watched a whole video on a breakdown of a new metal type that when next to heat... or when heat is generated, it retains its original shape. So it's like, imagine a paper clip and you bend the crap out of it and make it into a weird squiggly, but as soon as you put a lighter underneath it, it straightens back to its original form, whatever you built, like made it as. So that is real. Like, that heat metal is real enough where, like, I'm seeing videos about it. Who knows how long the government has known or has stuff in place that we don't even know about.
That's right, Jacob.
But it was built for space, like for space station stuff, right? Like to keep things rigid if, like, forces were enacted on
That's
it.
Right,
so
Jake.
the idea that some sort of alien spacecraft would be made out of this, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense, right? Okay. So, but, like, I'm dead serious. I saw this video,
I love
so that
how you
makes
started
complete sense
off
to
as
me.
a skeptic, and now you're like, wait a minute, no, this is the answer.
I'm not saying I'm not a skeptic, but, like, There you go. What if it's us from the future? If that tech exists
you went
into
all the way
long
there.
form.
Okay.
Exactly. So what if time travel does exist in the future, right? Because you're like, well, where's the evidence of people from the future then? We should be seeing it. We are seeing it, Jeffrey.
How about we do this? Let's give our theories at the end. Let's wrap this up. No, this is good. I want to keep this, but let's wrap up our theories at the end for fun, and so people can stick around if they want to hear some crazy theories that we've heard or talked about. But I don't keep on that thought though, because I have a similar thought off of that we can kind of get into.
Perfect.
So we already know that Jesse's father was the head person who was recovering all the debris, right? And so here's the thing: after the operation happened, all the debris was in transit to Washington. And so for a weather balloon, or even a cluster of more secret mogul monitoring balloons, as the official story later changed to, there's a great deal of debris spread over a quarter mile. It took 5 trucks to collect it all, and a massive USAF freight plane to fly it all to Washington. Some balloon, huh? Why would you... You have a base that does all this high-tech and has all this high-tech, again, aircraft you're dropping atomic bombs nearby. Why do you need to take it to Washington if you know what this is? If this is your tech from a nearby base, why are you taking this to Washington?
Maybe they didn't have enough space,
Jacob,
Jeffrey.
what's the point
Maybe
of
they
taking
didn't have a place
it to
to store
Washington,
it. You know how
DC?
spring cleaning goes. Get it out of here.
Yeah, okay.
You know another base that has a storage unit open?
Jacob, why would you take it to the president? Why? What's the point?
Why not fly the president out to them?
What's the point, Jake? That's the question. That's where this doesn't add up.
I mean...
So here's the thing, right? I've yet to say the words. I've said bodies.
Okay.
I didn't say what kind of bodies.
Were
there dead aliens in the wreckage? That has to be talked about. That could be something that if this happened.
Right.
That is something we have to debate. Because Jesse was honest enough to tell the interviewer that he never knew for sure whether that was true, as his father was forbidden to talk about it from then on, even to his family. But he told me he told the interviewer that his father did tell him that 3 coffins were in the plane that transported the wreckage to Washington.
Whoa.
Again, this is all writing in that man's claim. Okay. But this is interesting, okay?
So some sort of... Man.
Some years later, Jesse told the interviewer that the son of the rancher who made the original discovery was drunk in a bar. This is, again, kind of a rumor. And started boasting that he had kept a piece of that original metal and that he hid it in his home. This is kind of an old story, an old rumor that, again, Jesse, the son of Jesse Sr., was describing as just interesting, right? Because if this is a weather balloon, right? So supposedly the story goes that the son of the rancher was boasting in a bar that he had a piece from the wreckage after he was drunk. And essentially a few days later after this happened, 2 men in suits with CIA ID turned up saying he had a piece of the U.S. government property and demanded it was handed over.
Oh.
And I've heard about this. This is not just this one. I've heard about this story in a few other documentaries that I've seen that there is proof that this happened. Yeah. That they showed up to this house and there was CIA. Okay.
It also, not to be like, again, I feel like we're living in the conspiracy. We're swimming in it right now, okay? So why wouldn't you get rid of those people? I know that sounds horrible, but like if you're the military and this is a life-changing event, if someone held it in their hands, you don't know if they're contaminated, why wouldn't you take them in? Why wouldn't you take them in just to see? You handled an alien material. We're just going to leave you be? Like, you also, I don't know, like the stories about him like giving it to his son, having him hold it. He was like literally physically had it in his hands. If the story is true, that was
the son of Jesse. But my thing is, if you're like that, you're not. I think that's you make a bigger story out of it. Like why? Like what's they had a piece of it. So what? Who's gonna believe them? No one has yet. You know what I mean? There's people that have this story out there, but 2 CIA agents show up at your door, demand whatever you have in your home that supposedly was from the wreckage. It's a story. It's like who's gonna believe them, right? You know, I feel like you take him in, you do the whole thing, you make him go missing. that's a bigger story. You know what I mean? That's a bigger story.
It creates a bigger story.
That's not. If
I mean,
I'm
maybe.
running the CIA, I'm going. Hey, keep them quiet, but don't get rid of them.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
That's true.
that'd be my intimidate them.
Intimidate
CIA.
Make
If
it
you're
so he
looking
never
for
speaks.
someone to run or be a part of the head, folks over there, I could get some stuff done. Just want to throw my name out there.
So, right. So, you're right. I guess, minimal risk, right? You try to silence him. You use all the pressure you can. And if somehow he does squeak it out to somebody and, start talking and start, blowing this up everywhere, it's your word against at the time, the government, right? Against the full might of the government. So, you're right. I guess the risk is pretty low. Enough not to cause that much of a stir. But I don't know. It just pops in your head of, if someone touched alien tech, I would have brought them in, done some tests, made sure that nothing's rubbed off on them.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about these people if it is real.
Yeah. Well, here's one thought for you. So one question that Jesse, the son, expressed as a question that he had in his mind over and over was, if this was just a wreckage of weather balloons, why was Washington so anxious to have every single bit recovered and still continue to go after any remaining bits years and years later? And why would that be something that was on top of mind? Just
You're
interesting
right.
thought that this is what he thinks about is what was expressed.
Right.
And so there was a government source that one of the first questions every new president of the U.S. asks is, his Pentagon advisor is whether there is any truth in Roswell. And, there's kind of that question that everyone wants to become president to know if aliens are real.
Yeah.
We might find out before, I have to become president for it. But I guess here's the scary thing to that. And this is what Jesse said as well, the son, that he heard that it's true, but there is something that that's a little bit more scary than that question, is that the U.S. presidents don't even have top-level security clearance, that there are several levels above them that are never attained and on a need-to-know basis for these programs because they're such an in-and-out of office type person. You are the one who's running,
Right.
but there's levels of security that even they may not know.
If it's not an immediate threat, then, it's best not to tell as least, as small people as possible.
Right, which is just...
Because if they go back to being a civilian, you know what I mean? Who knows?
Right, which is an interesting thought to think about. So I guess we can kind of conclude it there. Okay, that's really the information that I have on hand. Those are the stories, the reasons why this is so interesting, and the reason why it's still such an open mystery for a lot of people. What actually did crash at Roswell on July 8th, 1947? Who knows? Was it a weather balloon, a new U.S. aircraft? Here's my thoughts to those kind of general questions would be, just to jump on that, is how come Jesse Sr., right, didn't recognize it as such? If he's the guy who's involved in all of these operations, he knows about the new aircraft that's being made, he knows about the bombs that are happening nearby, he has that information. This happens. How does he not even recognize what it is? How does he stand by it years later that this was not of this earth after being involved in all of that other new prototype aircraft that's happening nearby? He knows this information. Why does he not recognize it? So, again, it's standing on the shoulders of one man, but...
Right. But still.
It leads me to just go, well, he might be onto something,
He might be.
Yeah.
Man.
So... essentially, that's really what I got for you today. That was my Roswell story. And again, I hate to not have answers, but that is literally where we're at now. And it kind of leads up to some of the information, the photos and the videos that are coming out now, where there's the 60 Minutes interview. I don't know if you watched that interview.
I haven't. See, I need to sit down and watch
Here's
all this
one
stuff.
direct quote from there. There's a pilot who flies off the U.S. Pacific Ocean, okay? Not the U.S. Pacific Ocean. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
The Pacific coast. And essentially, he said, quote for quote verbatim, he would be interacting with these things every day for 2 years. That he would fly out over and do sweeps, and they would do all kinds of flying maneuvers. That this would be a consistent, it's a regular thing that they would see and interact with. For the 2 years he was doing that, he said every day. every day.
That's so weird.
So as more and more information is coming out and videos, supposedly there has already been acknowledgement that we have videos that are within 100 feet of a craft in high definition photos and videos of these things. Like we're starting to see, I don't know if you've noticed this, but each piece of information that is verified keeps getting clearer and clearer of what we're looking at. And so I'm going to be really interested to see as the June 2nd date comes closer to when they have to release all of this more of this information.
Is that all of it? Like you have to release all of it by that time?
Again, they're not going to release anything they don't have to release, but I almost think this is a thing that's been in motion that they just want to get it out there, that people are ready. I think it might be something that it's obviously a conversation that can't be hidden anymore. I think it's just one of those that I don't know. Maybe they're not aliens. Maybe it's something that we're just going to say we don't know what these are, but this is something that we are experiencing on a regular basis, and the public now knows. And so, who knows? But that's why I wanted to do this podcast. It started from a really interesting conversation about that information that's coming out, and led me down this rabbit hole of kind of when it first started. The sensationalism and kind of how it became culture, and funny enough, I don't know if you know this, but Roswell really wasn't talked about for like 30 years until the late 70s and 80s when it became books and people did more research. Like there was a period of time where that excuse
incident
was sufficed. Like it was really not talked about. There's no books. There's really no publications. Nothing. From that initial incident, and they came back with this information, blah, 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 of this is what happened. There was a span of time where nothing came out until So
you're saying they thought they got away with it. And they thought they were successful in stopping our interests.
Yeah. So that's where we're at today, Jake.
I like it.
I hope you guys enjoy this podcast.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It's very good. Like, again, like it's always good to like refresh that stuff. I didn't know all the details. I've seen a bunch of documentaries on this, obviously, as you do. Which I feel like I grew up watching the History Channel, and you with me as well. Yeah. Like, watching all these little these little mini docs about it. But yeah, so my theory, humans from the future, they acknowledge that humans go on, and so it's not as like life altering, but we've reached a point where like a little bit of time travel is possible, and that's what the government knows. That's what I believe right there. There you go.
I don't want to. That's my conspiracy. Want to ruin any credibility of future podcasts and who you put your faith in, people. If you're listening this far, but here's a thought for you. There is a direct video that you can go look up online of a unidentified aircraft, not going to say UFO, just unidentified object that is hovering above water and going at a super rate of speed, and they have it on one of those aircraft cams, and they have it on radar.
And
it's locked on. This is a different one, Jake. I don't know. Well, maybe you have seen this one.
The one that
speeds,
showed
and then it dives into the water,
ocean, right?
And it dives into water. So my theory goes, the ocean. 3% of that is what we haven't discovered. Or I mean, that we have discovered. There's 97% of the ocean we don't know what's going on down there.
Mainly because it's too deep for anything to survive.
You mean any of our human side to survive?
Any of our tech now to survive.
Yeah.
See,
we know that there's animals and things down there. We've seen as far as we go. There's been living life, and there's been things that lurk in the deep and live in the crazy amounts of pressure. And we found crazy. Have you seen those crazy looking squids that are like 100 feet long?
Yeah, their eyes are literally the size of soccer balls.
Yeah, so all I'm saying is...
Yeah, those giant squid, for sure.
If I was an alien civilization, and I wanted to keep watch on some anthill, and then on an anthill that was kind of doing some cool stuff, I'm like, huh. Have you ever heard the theory, the ant colony in the rainforest?
No, but I get the idea. Right, I get the idea behind it.
Imagine coming across an anthill in the forest, the Amazon forest that knows how to make let's say make nukes. Like you're gonna go, what? Let's study this. What's going on here? You know, you're gonna put a little enclosure around them, and you're gonna go, you know what? Let's just keep checking up on them. Let's see what happens. Let's see what goes on.
Yeah.
There's no need to get involved, but let's just see what's going on.
Earth is a TV show on an alien planet.
Yeah.
And all those are just film crews. All those ships are just film crews around the Earth, you know, checking in. Yeah. Well, it's like the top-rated show on all alien channels.
If they're high, here's another thought. Last maybe thought I'll give is if they're so advanced. Let's say that these are aliens. That's what it is. It's another civilization. If they're so advanced, I don't think that they would be in the craft. Whatever it is, it makes no sense. Let's say, well, at least from my human perspective, I'm going to send a drone. I'm going to send a metallic drone that just has all sensors, and I can just send it to play off in different directions. Let's send like a few to Earth, and let's just keep watch over what's going on. Like I'm just going to send drones. Sure. You know, that's
unmanned.
Yeah,
craft.
Unmanned craft. Why would I go there directly if I don't have to? Like if you have the technology to go there in your alien ship and not get out or do anything, why are you going? A drone can do everything you need to do. You know.
I mean, but what if like you're fed up at your alien job, you know, you're unhappy, your alien kids are demanding, you know, you're like, God, I got to get away, you know, I got to go on a vacation. And
we're like the Grand Canyon.
You decide to go
for the alien
to a small little planet. You go to a small little planet where you think nothing's going on, but it's kind of entertaining. And you're like, we'll go to the desert for a couple weeks, kids. And then you have car troubles over the desert. It crashes. The ant colony finds the men in the rainforest.
That's true.
You know, it's nuts. I mean, it's crazy. I think now more than ever because of the new evidence that I'm like, it's expanded my mind a little bit. If nothing else, if you take nothing else from all this alien talk, if you don't believe it, you think it's all completely crazy. I'm not even saying you're wrong. I'm just saying the idea that we all need to open our minds to the possibilities because the universe is so vast that the numbers they demand it. Like there is life of some form out there. We don't know what form, we don't know how much, but like with how big the universe is, it's an eventuality.
Yeah.
So I think if nothing else, it just expands you as a human. Like expand your mind a little bit. Think outside of yourself. Really think about your place in the universe. Yeah. I feel like that's a productive thought from any of these talks about aliens, whether you believe it or you don't.
Well, I would agree with that line of thinking just based on odds that there would have to be something else out there.
Yes.
But also there's a good video that always breaks my mind, quite literally, is you've seen them. I know you have. The videos that start from your position, eye level, backs up to the home level, backs up to the city level, backs up to the country level, backs up to the earth, just keeps going and going and going, and shows you the depth of
how small we are in our place here.
And how everything is so far apart, and it just keeps going back and back and back and back. I actually went to one of those observatories where they have the projector that goes in 360 on
some of those I know what you mean.
And so they did there was a Neil deGrasse Tyson one, and he talks about the radiation of that's how we're able to see a lot of these things is through radiation, and it took you through from the earth and backs you up all the way through and shows you the scale at which we can conceive and what we can see of the known universe, and it just completely breaks your mind in half. So
all of that breaks my mind in half. I mean, truly, when you look at the moon, you're seeing the moon in the past, like hundreds of years.
The moon? I don't think it's the moon. I think you're talking about other light, right?
Right.
It's not the moon.
Well, I mean, starlight as well, because the amount of time it takes for even at light speed, that's how big our world is. Even at light speed, for that light to reach Earth and to reach your pupils, right, and be reflected back, and you to assess it and actually see something, like that thing is millions of years in the past. The light that you saw was from something, a glimpse, like a photo of it, millions of years in the past. That thing might not even exist when you're looking at it. Like, that's how big our universe is.
I have a thought for you that I read about. Have you heard of the here's one way that you could time travel, or you could see what was going on Earth? Let's say you have incredible vision. You're in a spacecraft. Let's say we're able to get outside of Earth, and we can create a wormhole where we can go 100 light years away from us in an instant, okay? And then look back at Earth. And if we had a great telescope, you know what I mean, and we could see the light that was coming in, we would see Earth from its existence. Like, we could see it by knowing the light. If we could bend time to go to that exact point of light, right? Because we know how far it expands at what rate. We could go to that version of point in space. If we had the technology,
and be able to view it like TV,
and be able to view, oh, look, the Earth just the dinosaurs just got wiped out, or you would be able to go and pinpoint within that light, that ray of light that's expanding from Earth. You'd be able to see the past.
Right there. See, that's the thing. I do. Here comes the optimist take in me. I do believe that the things that humans like creatively think about can exist. I do believe in that probability that if we can think it, if we can imagine things, even as like sci-fi as it sounds right now, like a lot of things are existing now that our parents and our grandparents thought are sci-fi, like that would never exist, would exist in a very future world. They're here. Even just video conferencing, what we're doing right here for this podcast was to our grandparents, like space technology, stuff in sci-fi movies. Like, I do believe that things, even as outlandish now as you think of them, time travel, like being able to teleport with tech, like I do believe the possibility of being able to make that happen is real. Yeah. I do believe that anything that humans, our brains can come up with, there's nothing that's going to be like, oh, that will never happen in a million years. Because I feel like that's always being disproven as time goes on. Yeah. So, man, I don't know. Like, it's very possible to me that somewhere even like close or incredibly distant future, if humans make it to that long, that time travel, some form of time travel could exist. Yeah. And it could be what you're talking about. Humans have moved on and they're viewing us like a movie, but they're seeing real time.
You wouldn't be able to get back to that time, I don't think. I don't know the I'm not going to try to pretend I know the laws of physics there.
Yeah.
But that's our podcast. Let's end it there. That's a good little end note.
Yeah, I like it.
Thanks everyone for listening. If you made it this far, check us out on social media. Casual X History is our @ you can find us on anywhere you listen to these podcasts. So if you're listening on Spotify and you go, you know what? No, I want to listen on Apple Podcasts. I want to listen on Breaker or, a few others. I just like to mention it. There's a lot of good apps out there.
We're available everywhere.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.